this story just keeps getting tougher to cover the more of these details that come out.
It's frustration of not knowing where she is, not knowing anything, you know? Like, all I ask sometimes is just, I just want to know where she's at so I can get her.
Many people call this case just unbelievable.
We're just holding on to the fact that we were going to see her again one day.
There were multiple indications that this individual presented a danger.
In Gwinnett County, Georgia, was a small city called Norcross, where Susana Morales resided with her tight-knit family. She was the youngest daughter of Maria Manzanares Salgado and Florentino Morales, and sister to Julissa Renteria and Jasmine Morales. Susana was a happy woman who loved spending time with friends at Meadow Creek High School, where she was a freshman. There, she was also known to be a popular, fun, and outgoing friend. She was a cheerleader and a music lover who taught herself how to play the ukulele in her free time. When she wasn't doing extracurricular activities, she would always choose to spend time with her family, even helping her mother out when the summer vacation came. In the late afternoon of July 26, 2022, Susana had just finished helping out her mother with work, so at 4 p.m., she began walking back home to Santa Ana Drive to rest. Before leaving, she also made plans with her mother to go shopping for school supplies the next day. Once she was home, Susana texted one of her friends who lived nearby, asking if she wanted to hang out before the day ended. They were looking forward to returning to school soon and wanted to make the most of their remaining free time. This normal visit with her friend would turn out to be her biggest mistake. At 6 p.m., Susana texted her mother to ask permission to visit her friend. Her mother allowed it, as this walk was nothing out of the ordinary for her. She then set out for the short 10-minute walk to her friend's house at the Sterling Glen apartment complex. Then, at about 9:40 p.m., after a fun time hanging out, Susana decided it was time to go home. She texted her mom that she was on her way before making the journey back. Her mother, Maria, waited for her to come back. However, 10 minutes passed. Then half an hour, and with still no signs or calls from her daughter, she began to worry. She repeatedly tried calling her daughter's phone, but there was no answer. When morning came, Susana still had not arrived home, so on July 27th, the anxious family went to the police station to report her possible disappearance. Unfortunately, the police dismissed them since it hadn't been 48 hours since they last saw her, so she wasn't considered a missing person yet. They told the family that she was probably with her boyfriend or partying with friends, as they believed this was what people her age would do. However, the Morales family didn't believe this, since Susana wasn't that type of person at all. They were adamant that it was unlike her not to show up when she was supposed to, and not tell her family where she was if she ever missed curfew. They stressed that when she texted that she was on her way home, she had every intention of doing so. She wouldn't have turned around and run away, as the police were implying. Gwinnett County Police labeled the case as a runaway, but her family disagrees, asking the public to be on the lookout in any way they can. When the 48-hour mark passed, the police gave in at last and filed a missing persons report for Susana Morales. Susana was described to have been wearing blue jeans, a yellow tank top, and white Crocs. She didn't have any other personal belongings with her except her phone. They also emphasized how Susana had no history of running away, nor did she appear to have the intention to. The police, however, maintained that there was no evidence that a crime occurred, nor were there any red flags indicating that she was in danger. Because of this, the authorities didn't seem to take her disappearance seriously, as they didn't make much effort to search for her. And so, the Morales family decided to take matters into their own hands. They went out to the streets to hand out flyers, made posters, and printed out pictures of Susana. They also posted on social media, talked with the neighbors and the people in the nearby areas, and even visited neighboring states. The worried family hoped that keeping the conversation about Susana flowing would convince the police not to ignore her disappearance anymore. Luckily, the owner of a nearby store came forward with important information. They showed the Morales family a video taken outside of their establishment just after 10 p.m. on the night Susana disappeared. She was walking on her own along Singleton Road toward the direction of her home. This spot was a mere minute or two away from their home. The family showed this information to the police and insisted on investigating what happened after the footage was taken. They also asked the police to track the last known location of Susana's phone that night. With this, they discovered that around 10:07 to 10:21 p.m., her phone moved along Singleton Road as she was expected to. Then, between 10:21 and 10:26 p.m., it pinged at Oaklock Trace, which was far out of the way from their home. After this, her phone was turned off. A month after she went missing, on August 29, 2022, the Gwinnett County Police Department finally released a statement to the public on the disappearance of Susana Morales. They still had no clue who could have taken or possibly harmed her, so they began knocking on doors and speaking to the people who last saw her at the apartment complex. Ultimately, they found nothing. For months, the family and community were left with no answers. Their only consolation was the community's overwhelming support. They helped push for the story to appear not just on radio shows and local news, but on national news as well. Before long, more people knew about Susana's story. Her sister, Jasmine, spoke to the media and revealed the police's lack of effort and how they didn't make Susana's case a priority. Still, the leads dried up, and for months, there was no progress in Susana's case. Then, on February 6, 2023, in Dacula City, Georgia, about 20 miles away from where Susana was last seen, a passerby walked along the wooded area at Highway 316. There, he spotted what looked like bones piled up. As he got closer, he was horrified to find that it was actually the skeletal remains of a human body. The man quickly dialed 911 and reported what he'd seen to the police, leading them to his location near Drowning Creek Road, just before the Barrow County line. When police got there, they quickly blocked the area off and searched for evidence. They also carefully moved the remains to be taken in for examination and identification. Days later, using DNA samples and dental records, the medical examiner confirmed that the remains belonged to Susana Morales. When the family got the call, they were beyond devastated at the news. This tragic end sent shockwaves throughout the community. No one in the area could think of who could do this to her and how she could have ended up so far away from home. About a week after the remains were found, Gwinnett Police, led by Chief James McClure, called for a press conference to take questions from the public and confirm findings from their investigation. He said that according to their investigation, Susana's time of death could be between 10 p.m. on July 26th to around 2 a.m. on July 27th, the time she was reported missing. We had every reason to believe that Susana was deceased. Chief McClure also said that he and his team did a grid search around the area where Susana's remains were found and recovered a handgun. They quickly ran the serial number through their system and found that it belonged to a police officer who reported it stolen after his car was broken into on July 27th at 11 a.m., the same day that Susana was reported missing. This information, Gwinnett Police took the firearms owner into custody for questioning on February 13th, 2023. This was Officer Miles Bryant. So how did she die? We don't definitively know. We're still investigating. What we do know is that she died at the hands of Miles Bryant. Bryant was from the Doraville Police Department in Georgia. He was arrested on the charges of concealing the demise of Susana Morales and for filing a false report about his stolen firearm. Then, after the remains were processed, Bryant was also charged with the abduction, physical aggression, and murder of Susana Morales. The Morales family, along with the rest of the community, were shocked at this news. The prime suspect had no connection to Susana or the Morales family, and he was an active police officer even at the time of his arrest. When the news got out of Susana's demise, Gwinnett County residents, both in person and online, shared the family's grief. Many took to social media to express their disappointment that it took so long for her to be found. Susana's case resonated loudly, most especially within the Hispanic community, and there were speculations about Bryant using his position as an officer to lure Susana. Meanwhile, Doraville officers were left scrambling after the news of one of their own committing such a heinous crime broke out. They were pressured by all the calls and comments coming from the public, questioning them if they tried to hide Bryant's crime. With the incident painting a bad image of their office, Doraville police officially fired Bryant later that day. A day after his arrest, authorities received a call from a woman from Snellville named Elisha Bates, who had known Bryant since childhood. With that call, police discovered a multitude of alarming details. Elisha recounted that in March 2022, Bryant reached out to her and wanted to meet up. At that time, she agreed, as she was also friends with a former partner of Bryant's. When they met, she got the impression that he was interested in her. Since their encounter, Bryant kept contacting her and asked her for another meetup. He even repeatedly asked if he could come over to her place, to which she strongly objected. Elisha said she was terrified when she came home one day and found that her door had been kicked in. There were no cameras in the area at that time, but when she asked her neighbors about it, they told her they saw someone snooping around. Though they didn't know who he was, Elisha already suspected it was Bryant. Later on, in December 2022, Elisha's neighbor installed a doorbell camera, and when they checked the footage, they found the same man who came by Elisha's apartment before had apparently returned 2 more times. Man was wearing a hoodie and tried to conceal his face from the camera. He knocked on her door and tried opening it many times. The neighbor showed Elisha the footage and her blood ran cold as she recognized the person to be Bryant. When I saw him on camera and saw what he was capable of doing, trying to break in, it had me very scared for my life. She reported to Doraville officers about Bryant's unwelcome trips to her apartment. She also stressed that she feared for her life since the man attempted to break in again while she was at home. The frightened woman even had to buy a gun out of fear for her safety. Despite all this, the Doraville officers told Elisha that she probably misinterpreted Bryant's gesture, suggesting that he just wanted to visit her as a surprise. They asked Bryant about it. He claimed that he only wanted to check on Elisha after seeing her posts on social media about feeling down. After this, the matter was let go. I don't think they took the matter seriously because he was a cop. However, I do feel like if they did, Susana would have still been alive. When she heard the news about Susana, Elisha feared the possibility that she could have been another victim and that he might have had more. But when authorities checked Bryant's personnel file from Doraville, there was no trace of any bad behavior or crimes. Representatives of the department said Bryant passed the background check. Nothing stood out from the file that would have prevented him from becoming a police officer. The file instead only showed Bryant with a decorated set of experiences, having worked for the Georgia National Guard, was in the Army, and was even a jailer at the county jail before being hired by Doraville police. However, this lack of proper reporting on his file would be a costly mistake. Soon came to light that before his unwanted attention on Elisha, another woman who knew Bryant from Berkmar High School came forward in 2018. She reported that Bryant also attempted to break into her home, and when police arrived, he gave an excuse that he just wanted to ask her about their homework assignment. No charges were filed, but the victim's sister asked the police to issue him a criminal trespass warning instead. Unfortunately, a warning like this didn't show up on his record. In the same year, another neighbor who also went to the same school as Bryant had her home broken into. When she checked her drawers, she even noticed one of her undergarments was missing. Then, in 2019, Bryant again went to the residence of a previous classmate and broke inside. The woman's mother saw in their surveillance footage that an unknown man was inside their house, wandering around and peeking into different rooms. Though nothing appeared to be stolen, both the woman and her mother called the police as neither of them recognized who he was at the time. When Elisha shared her story about Bryant, the woman's mother checked her video once again and found his build to be similar to the man in the video. Contacted police who quickly processed the video and confirmed that it was indeed Bryant. He was charged once again, this time by the Snellville Police Department for first-degree burglary due to this incident. By 2022, Bryant was living in the Sterling Glen Apartments, where Susana last visited her friend. He was even employed there as the courtesy officer, and his apartment overlooked that of Susana's home over at Santa Ana Drive. During his residence there, neighbors also noticed that he often approached women who enjoyed the pool at the complex and offered them liquor. Investigations also revealed that Bryant had used his authority to search at least 3 women's phones, only to use this chance to send their private photos to his own device. The prosecution in Susana Morales' case gathered this evidence as proof that Miles Bryant was a dangerous individual. On February 14, 2023, Susana was finally laid to rest at Gwinnett Memorial Park, and the memorial was attended by family, friends, neighbors, and people in the community who stood by them from the beginning. In May 2023, Miles Bryant stood trial and was once again denied bond. Gwinnett County Prosecutor Brandon Delphant believed that Bryant used his badge and his position as an officer to commit his crimes and led Susana Morales away from her home. He currently sits in jail and awaits his next trial date scheduled for June 2024. A year after Susana's passing, her family was still reeling from the events and visited her grave regularly as they processed their grief. 1 year later, they are still heartbroken. They say they are still seeking justice and want the City of Doraville Police Department to take accountability for their actions in this death. I think that the police department here is at fault due to the fact that they did not do enough investigation before hiring this person, given how Bryant managed to gain a position of power despite his threatening behavior. Attorney Alex Northover demanded change in their process of bringing in aspiring cops into their office. There should be proper screening procedures, adequate training, and thorough profile checking so that dangerous people like Miles Bryant would not enter their ranks. There were multiple indications that this individual presented a danger. There is a previous allegation of stalking. The City of Doraville was put on notice of these issues and did an internal investigation, but took no corrective actions. They need to take responsibility for their role in this tragic incident and take measures to make sure that this doesn't happen again. In April 2024, the Morales family, led by their patriarch Florentino, also planned to sue the Sterling Glen apartment complex, where Susana last visited, and where Bryant lived and worked as a courtesy officer. It was revealed that prior to being hired as their courtesy officer, Bryant had a history of having loud arguments with his girlfriend in his apartment. There were also 2 counts of physical altercations between him and his girlfriend that occurred within the complex. A few of his neighbors even heard him talking about how he didn't take the position as a courtesy officer seriously and just saw it as an extra paycheck. Given these, the Morales family believed the apartment should have conducted a proper check on Bryant to ensure that he wouldn't pose a threat to the complex's residents and visitors. For now, the grieving family hopes that no one else will experience what they went through and that Susana's demise will cause a change in the system to protect others in the future. As they heal from the deep wound that Susana's demise inflicted, the Morales family continues to cherish her memory and remember the happiness and joy she brought into their lives. I think it brings some kind of peace to me knowing that she is here. I'm not wondering where she's at or if she's somewhere else. All I really just want is justice for my daughter. We're really close as a family. When we think about that, we think about all the times that we laughed together. It was really hard. And it's only gonna get harder, honestly. But at least now we know she's with us, and it's not like we don't know where she is now.